Hello and welcome. This is Vivica Williams and you're watching Head to Head on UATV. It's been almost 4 years since Ukraine signed the association agreement with the EU, and the Council of Europe has approved an action plan that helps Ukraine financially to implement this agreement. Symbolically approved on the anniversary of the Heavenly 100, the plan sends a clear message that Ukraine is still on the European agenda. So to discuss the plan forward, we are joined in the studio today by political expert Bohdan Ferens. Hello, Bohdan. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
So tell us what exactly this action plan should cover.
This action plan is focused especially on the reforming process of Ukraine. And the main point of this action plan is institutional capacity of Ukrainian authorities. And as we see, according to the association agreement, Ukraine has to reform different spheres, from the energy sector, infrastructure, towards the human rights institutions, and, for example, the things which are in the sphere of culture. That's why it's a broader picture. But as we mentioned concerning the support in the framework of this agenda plan, it's very important to realize and understand what concrete topics in these reforming processes should be on the first stage and on the second stage.
So as we know, the association agreement is very broad, as you were saying, and it covers a lot of different spheres. So this action plan is aimed at one particular aspect, or is it in general the institutional capacity?
If we are talking the frame of the cooperation between Ukraine and the European Union, this action plan is really broad. But if we are pointed out the last information concerning the financial support through the European Council, it's another point of view. And the focus on human rights, on reforming of criminal cases, processes.
So this action plan actually only gives about less than 30 million euros to this. And what could be covered in this small amount of money in the grand scheme of things?
It's really not a big amount, but it's a good point and good sign for Ukraine, I think. And this support is in the framework of cooperation between Ukraine and the Council of Europe. And we know that the Council of Europe is focusing a lot on the human rights agenda. That's why I think this money will be used especially on the reforming process of our judicial system, of the Office of Procurement, and human rights projects. I think it will be a main point of this using of this financial support.
And when will they have better information about the specifics of how this money is supposed to be used?
Yeah, but we have an office here of the European Council. And this office is operating different projects for the period of 4 or 5 years. And I think the focus will be on the institutional capacity framework and development of the institutions. Because for Ukraine it's very important, we know. The lack of the good experience in institutional reforming processes is very big. That's why using the financial support of the Council of Europe, of other institutions, we should start especially from the Parliament, from the Cabinet of Ministry, from the civil servants. We should start the reforming process in this capacity building ability.
So what has changed now? This has been 4 years, and how have things changed in the last 4 years in terms of Ukraine's ability to implement the association agreement, as well as Europe's expectations for the implementation?
I think we have been achieved some results, but of course we have to do much more as a country. We have threats as usually, and the big and the main threat is Russian aggression. But despite this, I think the reforming process in Parliament concerning the ability of Ukrainian parliament to produce a really good draft laws in the frame of association agreement with concrete aims is very important. At the same time, usually we make, as a country, maybe some copy-paste from the reforming processes from other countries.
Versus this
Yes.
implementation, you see this law and
Yeah, like copy-paste. But you know, the problem is that copy-paste methods usually is not so good. Why? Because in Poland, this institution can work quite good despite any threats. But in Ukraine, it's not a point that this kind of institutional reform could work just from the very beginning. This is why I think it's very important to focus on the background of reforming processes and to analyze the realities. It depends on the capacity of different institutions on the national level and on the local levels in the frame of decentralization, for example. But we should, as a country, we should realize that copy-paste method, it's not our panacea from everything.
Absolutely, because as you said, the institutions, the structures within the institutions need to exist to be able to implement laws. And once another country has created this law, they've gone through often a process to get to there. So you were saying that it's possible that this action plans can be directed towards things dealing with human rights, the court system. What do you envision with specifically with types of projects that may be used for this?
From my experience, I can share this in the frame of parliamentary capacity building reforming processes. There are a lot of trainings, for example, for civil servants, for staff members, and it's really important because they are specialists. I think in this frame, the representatives from the staff offices of the Office of Procurement or from other institutions, they will be able to get this experience through workshops. The other point is the expertise. It's very important, especially in creating different internal procedure issues.
Absolutely.
And European experience can be very useful in this regard too. And I think much more important how this money could be used in these reforming processes, because to organize a lot of events, conferences and workshops, it's not enough.
Well, and it's not effective.
Yeah, and effective. We should feel, and our people, Ukrainian people, should feel added value from these reforming processes.
Absolutely.
Especially in the case of different spheres. In transport, for example, you can organize or you can prepare a very good strategy, beautiful presentations, but when Ukrainian ordinary people are not able to feel this in real life, it's not a good way of spending this amount of money.
Absolutely. This has a lot to do with communication and with being able to demonstrate reform and to be able to communicate with the public about what's being done.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Bohdan.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
We always enjoy talking with you. You always bring a lot of good insights.
Thanks a lot.
That was Bohdan Ferens, political expert. Thank you for watching UATV. Have a great evening.